First comments about, I won't talk about American West Metals and apologise for my voice, but a big 3 days talking, but I really like these narratives of these gold, copper producers getting up and running with, what a lot of people perceive as fairly small and limited mine lives to start with, but have the ability to give cash flow to the company and investors very early on and then build from there. And I think it's really good to get off that capital raise merry-go-round and to roll your sleeves up and get busy if you've got that kind of opportunity, which Matza clearly does, and I think we do as well in the copper space, which I'll talk to. Like Chrissy mentioned, look, we're North America focused, so we're Canada and the US. 3 projects. We'll mostly talk about Storm today. That's our flagship project that has recently put out a PEA, and on the back of that, we formed a strategic partnership with a metal trading company and funding company that has really secured the long-term future of Storm and the company. We also have 2 other assets in Utah, USA. West Desert is a polymetallic zinc, copper, indium, silver skarn. It's currently one of the world's largest undeveloped indium deposits, and I might touch on that quickly if I have time as well. But happy to talk to people after it, the session on that as well and go into a bit more detail. That's very close to Bingham Canyon, and as you guys know, that's one of the world's largest copper mines. We've also got Copper Warrior. That's a 15 kilometres from Utah's second largest copper mine, which is Lisbon Valley. That's recently been added to the US administration's Fast 41, which is a new permitting, scheme that's come in place on the back of Trump's executive orders. And so, look, we're also getting a lot of questions about Canada and US, and look, we do have a foot in both camps, so it's very interesting times, particularly in the geopolitical situation at the moment. I'd say in the US, it's a double-edged sword. Obviously, a lot of the market turmoil, etc., with the short-term changes in Trump's policy, but it's also been fantastic in terms, and we're seeing immediate responses in terms of permitting and approvals and those things getting over the line. Things that generally take years are now taking weeks, so it is an amazing step forward in the US, and we're seeing the same in Canada as well. There's a lot of interest in the north. We're in really good company up there with Agnico Eagle and some other big miners, and a lot of interest in particularly the Arctic regions of Canada for obvious reasons. Hence why Trump wants to get his hand on it as well. But look, I will talk mostly about Storm today. This picture is important to understand how we do what we do in terms of the processing. This is, I guess, not your typical Storm ore. It's bornite and chalcopyrite there, but you can see how coarse the mineralisation is, and that goes a long way why we can process this extremely effectively with very simple techniques, which I'll talk to. Just a quick snapshot on the PEA, and I'll go into a little bit more detail, but it really has underlined this is potentially, well, not potentially, will be the lowest cost copper mine on the ASX and potentially on the planet. So we're very unique with our mineralisation. You can see the initial capital bill is less than $50 million. That's going to open a few doors for us, obviously, and then give us that pathway to production. On the back of that, we've managed to secure a strategic alliance with Ocean Partners, who is it's an equity, so they'll be taking 9.5%, I think, of the company. They'll be providing $40 million towards the build, and they'll be doing 100% offtake on the copper. So we've got interest in the company, we've got someone to help us build it, and we've got someone to buy the copper. So that's an amazing outcome for the company. It really underlines the future for Storm and secures, because we'll be working together to get to the end point. So very strong partner. They do DSO out of Africa at 10 to 15% copper. They do ore sorting operation in Ireland, where they move zinc into Poland, and they've got trading facilities and blending facilities in Thailand and Taiwan, etc. And they global operation there. So they're fantastic to have on board, and we'll work together to optimise this process further and make it better. So a lot of questions I get as well on my map. I've got Storm at the very top there in the Arctic, obviously, but look, I can guarantee this is not nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, and there's a very, very big cohort of other mining companies and other operations in the area. Like I said, we're amongst 10 other mines in the area. Diamonds, gold, Agnico Eagle, MMG, and that's just the mines. There's a lot of explorers, as you know, a lot of Aussie explorers up there, including us. It's 12 months mining, 24-hour sunlight during summer and a little bit of darkness during winter, but it's essentially 24 hours a day. It's a fly-in, fly-out operation, so it's very similar to Western Australia. We have a limited shipping season, 3 months of the year, but that has no problem. So Red Dog, one of the biggest zinc mines on the planet, is seasonal. Two of Canada's largest nickel mines, Voisey Bay, Raglan, they all do seasonal shipping, so it's not an issue. The beauty of obviously gold and diamonds, you can fly your product out any time of the year, but as you can see, we're located on the coast and have access to extremely good logistics. So Storm, as it sits today, is around about 20 million tonnes, but it's a sediment-hosted copper deposit, and it's an important point to make in differentiation in that if you look at, I guess as global analogues would be the Central African Belt, Kalahari Copper Belt, you've got Mateo Sandfire resources, and they're the typical deposits. Now, if you also look globally, what they look like, they generally sit in that, hundred of millions of tonnes, kind of at about 1% copper. So fantastic copper camps and very large. As you can see, sitting at 20 million tonnes at the moment, there's a lot of room for growth, and we've got a very big belt, which I'll talk to. This is what it looks like, the initial mine, and let me just rephrase, this PA is really stage one of Storm. This is what will get us into production, we'll grow it, but then what does stage two look like? Well, it depends what we discover in the future, but certainly stage one is very simple. You can see there's 4 subvertical ore bodies sticking out of the ground, which provides very low strip ratio, all open pits. Our larger deposit, Cyclone, which we believe we've only found half of that, is flat lying, but all of it's very low strip ratio, like I said. So we have 500 metres of permafrost, which it seems hard to believe, but there's obviously a lot of opportunities with that. There's no groundwater. So, mining is very simple. You can see most of our resources are also in the indicated category, so very good conversion and very good high confidence. This is the bit that really makes Storm what it is today, and that picture looks fairly complicated, but I can tell you the process is certainly not. So what we do in simplistic terms is take 1 to 2% copper ore, crush it, turn it into a coarse fraction and a fine fraction. The coarse fraction goes through ore sorters and gets upgraded to 15 to 20% copper. The fines go through inline pressure jigs, which is, I guess, like a gravity type separation circuit, and that makes 15 to 20% copper as well. They get recombined and then we send that off in the ship. That's it. Working with Ocean Partners, they deal in concentrates all the way down to 10% copper. That's an opportunity for us to potentially improve this in the future and actually reduce that capital number, which I'll talk to in a minute. Now, and again, this is technology that's been used over time. Gravity separation is the oldest mining technique. Ore sorters are used in lithium. You saw some examples earlier. In iron ore, coal, and now in copper. So this is well known, simple, and efficient. No tailings, no chemicals. That's the other upside for this kind of production. So just a quick snapshot of the Storm mine plan, and the first thing you see there is it's fairly constrained in terms of mine life. We have a 10-year production life at this point, and you can see there's a significant opportunity to expand the mine in the future, and I'll talk to that very quickly as well. At this stage, it's about 1.2 million tonnes per annum, which translates to about 100,000 tonnes of copper that we need to get out every year. So as an example, that's about 4 to 5 ships. And if you think that's a lot, well, the iron ore mine down the road does 64 ships per annum. So that small shipping season isn't a concern at all. Just a quick snapshot of the economic outcomes. You can see there that it very quickly makes good cash, particularly for a company like us. It makes about $300 million Aussie over the first 6 years. As you can imagine, again, a fairly small cap company, that money will go a long way to setting us up for what we think is going to be a regional, 10, 20, 30-year mine life play here. Now, how do we grow it? Well, it's fairly simple, and what we've shown year on year out is the ability to grow the resource. We have 2 discoveries we made last year, which are not included in the resource, which I'll talk to. So they're instant opportunities. And there's a lot of drilling that we did last year. We just didn't put it inside the resource. So there's probably another 50,000 tonnes of copper we could put in the resource tomorrow. And look, that's going to be the focus for the plan this year. One particular example is Cyclone Deeps. And like I said, this is a bigger deposit. This is the 13 to 15 million tonne that we've found. We believe we've found that now sniffs of the other half of it. It's butterflied. It's down thrown down in the southern graben there. This could mean that Cyclone could be that 30 million tonner. That's like Mateo again, that sandfire type deposit, and obviously at very good grades. That 22 metres at 8.5% copper, that's not in the current mine plan. So we're going to do some more drilling around that. We're going to find out where the rest of Cyclone is this year. But one thing to point out very importantly is that Storm's about 5% of the entire land package that we have. So as you can see, the ability to get a mine going, develop, like if people remember the western areas, the Jubilee, these are mines that started on what was quite limited resources started, and through organic growth, they grew into be billion-dollar companies. I'll give you an example, the Cosmos mine. I think they started, it was about 10,000 tonnes of nickel. They decided to develop that amongst a very small, I guess, land package. They had the ability to expand that future on, but what they did then is through organic growth, developed, and then got bought out for $3 billion by Xstrata, and then hence Glencore. And the same goes for Western areas. So I'm a strong believer of if you've got something like, again, the Matsa opportunity, play to your strengths, get that thing going, particularly when something's so cheap like us, the $50 million spend, use it to fund exploration. We owned 100% of this belt, over 2,000 square kilometres. So this is a very, very long-term copper story that's only going to get bigger. We've got drilling now has identified a copper over about 20 kilometres around Storm, and expect to see more drilling in that area this year and more results come out of that. But we have copper identified at both ends of that 110 kilometre belt. As I said, these are big systems. Look at the Central Kalahari belt and the Central African belt. They're usually hundreds of millions of tonnes of copper. So that's what's potentially sitting in the future for us. So just in summary, I am running out of time. I might not get a chance to talk to West Desert, but two very clear strategies for us to add value is to progress with our partners, Ocean Partners and Taurus, who have bought a royalty on Storm. Great, I guess, belief in the project. You wouldn't buy a royalty if you didn't think thing's going to get up and running. Is to progress the development side of things, but also explore. I mean, I'm an explorer, I'm a geologist. Nothing better than getting big drill hit. Absolutely, we've got the speculative side of the stock and we've got the development side of the stock. So that's why I think we're a very good opportunity here, particularly at the current price. Project activities this year. Look, we're 2 years into doing our environmental studies, so permitting timelines. Generally, none of it is absolutely one of the best jurisdictions I've worked with. Look, I'm ex-BHP, Western Mining, I've worked globally. Without doubt, it is one of the most straightforward permitting jurisdictions I've ever worked in. The government is extremely supportive. In fact, I was at the mining symposium in Ocala a couple of weeks ago, and Storm was the only project that the Honourable Minister, Mr. Agigok, mentioned in his opening speech. And that's with Agnico Eagle sitting in the room. So it felt pretty good. We didn't have it on video, unfortunately, but it's an absolutely, they're behind the project. We employ locals. It's a very, very busy mining scene up there. So look, we're doing the ESG studies. We're more community liaison. The environmental work's almost done. We'll tidy that stuff up and then package that up into a PFS. Most of the work's pretty much done. And then release that, but then also do the exploration. That's the other key thing. And then if people want like a good copper story and purely for the growth, we'll be doing both. So get on board. Thank you for your time.